Hello everyone, it's LS, and welcome to patch 8.16, also known as the World of Tanks. Riot is now having a collaboration with another game. So we're going to get right into this patch rundown and look at the atrocity that is in front of us. And I hope to the gods that this is not the World's patch, and I hope that a lot of changes are coming before a World's patch, and you're going to see why. So first up is Aatrox. So they said that we mostly gotten Aatrox's power level down to a good place, but we still need to trim a bit of his laning streak to prevent him from being so much of a bully. Umbral dash 33% to 15%. Now I think that's overstepping it. Charges when learned 2 to 1. I think this balance change is really fine. This change does not affect him. So the R World Ender is a placebo change. This change I think is a little bit too dramatic. I think that's too much of a sustain, especially because there's some matchups where Aatrox can actually be bullied, although maybe people don't know how to properly bully him, especially if they haven't gotten used to playing against him. I think this change is okay. I think this change is pretty terrible, and I think this change is just a placebo change. Fizz, W damage ratio decreased. R damage ratio decreased. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, they just buffed Fizz, and it actually looked like a pretty good buff. And one of the main complaints that I had about Fizz is that after the mage changes and after the itemization changes, Fizz was left in a really, really ugly spot. And Fizz was missing a lot of the damage that made Fizz viable later on in the game and made Fizz a reliable pick. So now, not even a patch later, despite, I don't think, having any professional play... Oh, no. There's been some professional play that I think Fizz has experienced. I think that Fizz was actually picked in Europe. But that aside, there is not a lot of data at the absolute highest ends. And even at the lower ends, the things that were gating Fizz before were not going to be present at the lower level play, because players were just going to get picked off. They weren't going to know how to position against Fizz, and Fizz was naturally just going to be a menace because of the low cooldown on Playful Trickster, and then the ability to still one-shot some of the champions. The problem arises in that the higher that you go up the ladder, the higher that you take the game, and ultimately if you end up reaching competitive play, Fizz has a problem in the later stages where Fizz does not actually have the damage necessary to take a sustained trade while Playful Trickster is on cooldown or, following up after an ultimate during a team fight. And it's also very difficult for Fizz to reliably actually hit Chum the Waters inside of a team fight when people know how to position against Fizz. And then also for Fizz to offer any sort of assistance in the laning phase 2v2s and whatnot without having to rely on the R. Now, the other thing for Fizz is that Fizz is often only picked as a counter pick, which also often means that Fizz is only going to come out on red side, often in the 4th or the 5th pick slot, depending on what the enemy mid laner has locked in. So with that being said, there's already so many problems gating Fizz. The itemization things have not been fixed, but the damage numbers helped alleviate some of the problems that Fizz was experiencing. With Riot, taking back some of the damage so quickly, I think that it's a little bit weird. Now, if they left the Chum the Waters damage in and they took these nerfs, I still think that it's not necessary. Like, you could easily have just done 0.6 to 0.55 or something, and 0.4 probably should have just... I don't know. I don't know what sort of data they're going off of. I don't know what is making them say that why the Fizz buff's last patch overshot. I have absolutely no idea. It just looks completely ridiculous. Hecarim, Q base damage increased at later ranks, Q damage ratio increased. So base damage, 55 to 195 scaling, 55 to 215 scaling. Damage ratio 0.6 bonus attack damage to 0.7 bonus attack damage. Hecarim is pretty weak currently, but we want to be careful about how we buff him, a bit more extended DPS. Now, this is the weird thing here, is they said that they want to be careful with how they buff him, but what they don't tell you here is that they gave him this buff because they just fucked Celerity. But we're going to get to that later, and I don't give a shit if I just got demonetized, because now we're remonetized. Anyways, Orianna, base magic resist decreased. So out of nowhere, Orianna, who is basically the queen of the mid lane, she is often only viable when other mid laners... She's viable when everyone is basically an A-tier champion. So when every mid laner is A-tier, Orianna suddenly becomes like A+ or S-. Orianna has not almost at any point in time in the last couple of years been this monstrous S+ pick. The problem is that she's very, very safe. She fits into a lot of team compositions. She's extremely flexible inside of draft, and she's just all around a great pick, much similar to Thresh or Lee Sin historically throughout the game's life. So, with that being said, why on earth she randomly gets a magic resist hit by 4 doesn't make that much sense. Is it that dramatic and magically going to somehow be the reason that she doesn't get picked anymore? No, it's not. But these types of micro nerfs, they add up over time, especially when other champions get buffed around her, and then she ends up getting forgotten about. Quinn, attack damage growth decrease. So I just blew up about this on stream. This is absolutely fucking insanity. Quinn became good on the premise that other ADCs gut hit, and that other champions gut hit, and that certain champions in the meta became vulnerable to her. Nothing happened to Quinn. She's been a terrible champion for a really long time. The problem is that every other champion kept getting slight hits. They kept getting indirect nerfs, whether it be via itemization or a meta shift or something. And Quinn sort of remained untouched because she wasn't being affected by any of that nonsense. And then the itemization came out, or the Stormrazor thing, and she happened to be one of the people that could actually make use of it. And she obviously naturally has a tendency to snowball. Teleport got nerfed. There was other things going on inside of runes and whatnot that didn't have to do with Quinn itself. Now, the teleport nerf wasn't the only thing that made Quinn a fantastic champion, or whatever you want to call her. She's not some monstrous champion. She is not a pick ban champion. She has counterplay. She is extremely volatile. She's extremely fragile. There's a lot of ways to shut her down. The problem comes from when she just instantly deletes you at 600 MS or something. This is one of the most asinine, ridiculous nerfs I've ever seen. They hit her before. They're going to forget about her. They're going to forget about the fact that the reason that she rose to popularity had nothing to fucking do with her herself, but that other shit was going on around her, and she just happened to be the one person that actually wasn't getting sick. So it's not that Quinn was a problem at all, but, you know, these nerfs are going to go completely we're going to be in Season 9, Quinn's not going to get any buffs, maybe itemization's going to change, Quinn's still going to suck, and they're going to keep hitting her with the little nerf bat, and then she's going to be completely forgotten about. She's going to be like an old toy that you put into your treasure chest case or whatever you have as a little kid, and then you never pick up again for a few years, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a champion. That's really great. Thank you a lot, by the way, for doing this. Keep nerfing her, because I'm sure everyone loves it. Rakan, health and armor decreased. Health 510 to 480, armor 36 to 33. Yes, it's an auto attack, basically, in the early stages of the game, or a little bit more, actually, when you factor in some of the earlier trades, when you factor in the armor and whatnot. It's not going to kill Rakan. He's still easily going to be one of the best solo queue supports in the game, and he's still going to be one of the most obnoxious supports in the game. So, it's laughable, right? Because you look at Quinn, you look at Orianna, you look at Hecarim, and how what they really didn't tell you is that Celerity's getting nerfed, and so they're just sort of like shifting the damage or whatever. So it doesn't really matter. Well, I mean, actually, I haven't done the math, so make sure to check out Freak's patch rundown. You look at Fizz, and, you know, now here's the kicker, Taliyah. So Taliyah went untouched for a couple of patches. We've also begun to see that Taliyah is not, you know, she's starting to get let through, both in solo queue and sometimes in competitive. And a lot of people were questioning where were the Taliyah nerfs. And so now we come in with the Taliyah nerfs, and they don't just, you know, they don't do stuff to the real problems that is causing Taliyah to have all the popularity that she's been having. Instead, they take away her MS, they move the seismic shove to 16 to 12 second scaling, so she's still going to be the same champion late game, she's just losing the 5 MS here, and then the Weaver's Wall no longer grants vision. And I'm just sitting here like... So these people are actually sitting around a round table, and someone raises their hand and says, you know what, I think this is an excellent idea. I think this is great. This is how we should nerf her. Now, if that video didn't, you know, encapsulate how most of the patch has been thus far, let's take a look at Trundle. Q Chomp. So they take 40 damage off it at rank 5, and then the damage ratio is buffed by a generous 0.2 total attack damage. Thank you so much. And then the stolen attack damage duration is nerfed by 3 seconds. Thank you so much. Absolutely love it. Tryndamere. This is the real kicker. So this is the Silver Volley Bear 2.0. E cooldown increased at later ranks. So let's ignore the fact that Tryndamere has absolutely no competitive viability. Let's ignore the fact that there is no high MMR Korean Tryndamere or even a Chinese Tryndamere. Let's also ignore the fact that I believe that there was a Korean or a Chinese Tryndamere post that was complaining about Tryndamere and how much he sucks and how he can't do anything in top lane. And then let's acknowledge the fact that someone was sitting at the office and lost to AP Tryndamere in Gold 2 and decided that that was imbalanced. And we need to hit Tryndamere and AP Tryndamere to make up for our own incompetence and our own inability to play the game. Because clearly AP Tryndamere and Tryndamere are problems, even though they're virtually non-existent. You can't detect them in an MMR where people have hands and eyes. You just can't detect him at that MMR. What the fuck? This is April Fool's. This is a complete joke. I don't know what I'm fucking reading. This is an actual legitimate patch note change that just comes out of nowhere. Can you just rework the fucking champion already? What kind of nonsense is this? Honestly, what is you wanna like what the you could I don't even know what you could do. You could take away maybe his heal. There's other ways to hit AP Tryndamere than hitting the spinning slash cooldown, which also affects AD Tryndamere, which is what the majority of people play him as because they actually know that AP Tryndamere sucks. But, you know, whatever, spinning slash. Okay, Wukong. Yeah, Wukong. That's how I'm feeling when I'm reading this patch. Q base damage decreased. Okay, so they took an absolute trash can champion and they decided that they were going to light him on fire. So it's sort of like in the movie or something when you throw the fire into the trash can and just let it burn. So right now we're in the homeless alley right now. Q crushing blow, 30 to 150, scaling to 10 to 130. So the base damage is down by 10. And then the total attack damage is also down. These are real nerves. This is a real patch. This is a real patch. This is the same patch where we're going to get to. Tanks are being buffed. And to top it off, a lot of the runes that these champions use, we're talking Electrocute, we're talking Airy, a lot of the runes that these champions use, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. They've been hit too, so they're losing even more damage. So this is just a fantastic game. I am so excited right now. Passive, Zoe damage decreased at all ranks, W damage ratio decreased. So I guess someone at Riot decided that they didn't want Zoe at Worlds. So we've been waiting for Zoe to be nerfed for about almost a year now or something. They never got around to it. I thought that Zoe was in a fantastic spot. I remember when Zoe first got nerfed, and I was like, oh, this is the death of Zoe. And I was very adamant that Zoe was still busted. I was very adamant that she was still one of the #1 mid laners and everything, because her kit is insane. Now, passive more sparkles. We look at the damage that they're taking off it, and is it magically going to change Zoe being picked in competitive? No. Will it change and affect her solo queue presence? Absolutely. These changes will definitely hinder her in solo queue dramatically. These changes will also hurt her in some matchups that are skill-based matchups, where Zoe is not just endlessly oppressive and the opponent can't really react to her and she's just able to do whatever she wants. So in skill matchups, or like 55-45 scenarios, 50-50s, 60-40s, etc., these changes are going to make those a lot more disgusting and difficult for Zoe, and I think in that regard it's kind of ugly. I don't think that this is necessarily the way that you need to approach nerfing her if you truly want to kill her or something. But I don't think it's super extreme, but I'm sitting here and I'm wondering why now? Why in 8.16? Why when other damage runes are being nerfed are we finally going to get these hits? And it just doesn't make sense to me. Tanks. Tanks haven't been feeling so hot in recent patches, so we're taking this opportunity to put more durability into their kits. So they say tanks, but what they really mean is the non-existent rejects that never see the light of day in competitive play. So first we're going to start with the Mumu, which is only picked by apparently Team MVP inside of the LCK. Passive now scales with bonus armor and magic resist, so this is really going to magically propel Mumu into the spotlight. While the bonus armor and the bonus magic resist and the base damage reduction being unchanged is definitely going to be a noticeable buff, it's not going to magically make a Mumu become this great champion, especially because he has other problems going on inside of his kit. that is likely just going to need a rework or some sort of a change to some of them in order to make him probably competitively viable. Having him be picked inside of the LCK by someone that fancies him or whatever is not an indicator that the champion has competitive viability. So I'm not really convinced there. Leonor, W cooldown decreased at later ranks. So her W Eclipse is actually very, very tanky, especially when you consider that Leona often has Aftershock. And so being able to have the W Eclipse up a lot more often is definitely impressive. This is probably the biggest change that we'll see out of the tanks, because the other ones are noticeable, but they're not as dramatic as Leona's. Nautilus, W base shield decreased slightly early, increased at later ranks. W maximum health scaling decreased at later ranks. W duration and cooldown increased. So base shield 65 to 85 scaling to 60 to 100 scaling. Shield scaling 9 to 70% maximum health, 9 to 13% maximum health, duration 10 seconds to 6 seconds, cooldown 18 seconds to 12 seconds. So the thing is that Nautilus, when he's inside the middle of a team fight, he's going to make use of the entire shield. So the duration of it doesn't really matter. The cooldown is what really matters because it means that it's coming up that much more often and you're making use of the maximum health much more frequently. So I would say that so far the Leona buff followed by the Nautilus buff is the order for the tank changes thus far. Ramus, W bonus magic resist increased. Ramus is a champion, interestingly enough, that these changes won't propel him back into the meta, but I definitely can see him being picked situationally sometimes. Don't get me wrong, he still has problems inside of the jungle, doesn't have terrain scaling, has very predictable gank paths, and then depending on like how Nunu works out, it just might not even be something that ends up getting picked. But again, that's dependent on some other stuff. Sion, W health gain increase 3 to 4 and then 10 to 15. These are really, really good. Do I think that it's magically going to make Sion come back into the meta? The buffs itself, no. The changes to the runes and the changes that have been happening to other champions, in addition to the fact that other champions likely to be hit in coming patches, might end up making it so that Sion returns to the meta. I'm also a pretty firm believer as well that this is going to make Ornn a lot stronger up in the top lane. Maybe these changes actually even make mid lane Ornn that much more viable. Some people may know that I have been an advocate of mid lane Ornn for quite a while now, especially because of the spellbook change. And Ornn can have spellbook inside of the mid lane, so it's all really good there. Tahm Kench, Q slow duration, and alright, so this is something that I can actually speak personally about because Tom is basically my son. So Tahm Kench has been a support that he's basically an A tier, he's a B tier to S tier support. He's a B tier support as a standalone, and he goes up to S tier against certain team compositions. He has to be picked situationally. He has to be picked against certain team compositions, and obviously in solo queue he's not nearly as oppressive as some of the other solo queue champions, and he's not going to be some sort of a pub stomper that you're going to make use of in order to rapidly climb MMR and gain elo. Although you could probably do that in top lane Tom and like lower MMRs like silver, gold, or platinum or something, but whatever. Q tongue slash, slow duration 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Okay, kinda sucks. Really does affect max range Tom, depending on what boots he has and what's the MS of his opponent. But it's okay. Cooldown 6 seconds to 5 seconds. So it's up more frequently. That will factor into some of his combos, but the problem is that Tahm Kench does not normally itemize to 40% CDR unless he's in the top lane. He does get CDR from the support role, but it often does not kick in until way later into the game, and so the cooldown reduction does not really matter all that much. W Devour Regurgitate. Devour duration changed from 4 seconds to 6 seconds scaling to 4 seconds. Enemy champion duration half. Ally duration unchanged. Cooldown 14 to 10 seconds scaling to 28 to 16. Cooldown is halved on enemy cast. So not only have they made it so that you basically need to have CDR inside of his kit, okay, you now don't get any... So when I saw this on the PPE, what they originally had going for it is that he was going to have damage added into his kit. He was going to have it so that his W was going to deal a lot more damage. I believe that the way that they had it set up is so that the rank 1 W would have been doing about previously what the rank 5 W had done. Had they done that in addition to the rune changes that we're about to get to in this patch and the changes that we're seeing elsewhere, it might have actually made top lane Tahm Kench a potentially viable pick. But obviously these are clear-cut nerfs to support Tahm Kench. The thing is that how often do you actually use double W in a fight immediately off of cooldown? Sometimes, very, 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 very few instances, I think that you do use it right off of cooldown inside of team fights. With that being said, if you do have max CDR and whatnot, I think late game he will almost play out the same way. It's just very, very peculiar changes, and it's really, really gross. This is also, I mean, so for Jungle Tahm Kench, I will say that it actually does look like it's buffs for Jungle Tahm Kench. So with that being said, this is kind of good. Cooldown going down, and then the W. So these are actually buffs for Jungle Tahm Kench. For top and support, I think that it's actually likely going to be nerfs. So anyways, let's get into the runes. Burst runes. The high burst damage present in the rune system is overall warped lethality and the game pacing. So instead of actually trying to touch on lethality or the damage that those items give, instead we're just going to fuck with all the goddamn runes and just make the other trees grossly better than them. So the base damage, so I just had to translate that for you guys. I understand that you don't speak Rito language, so that's what I had to had to translate for you. Summoner Airy, 15 to 40 at levels 1 through 18 to 10 to 40 at levels 1 to 18. Great, fantastic. Base shielding, 30 to 80 to 35 to 80. Great, because we don't need more mid-Lulu or mid-Karma or whatever in the earlier stages of the game. We don't need more. Now, don't get me wrong. I love League of Tanks. I hate nerfs. You could have buffed all the tanks. You could have buffed Grasp of the Undying. You could have buffed Resolve. You could have buffed the entire Resolve tree. You didn't need to nerf everything. You don't need to nerf champions in order to buff others. That's not how that works. When you do both at the same time, you are then forcing an agenda. You are forcing something to occur. And if I can predict anything about 8.17 or 8.18, we're not done yet with the nerfs, and we're not done yet with skewing the meta direction into one thing. And even if we end up having World of Tanks, or League of Tanks or whatnot for Season 8 finals, or Season 8 World Championship, okay, but this is really gross. Electrocute. Base damage decreased, damage ratio decreased. So this is really gross. 30 to 180. They cut 40 damage out of it. 20 at rank 1. 40 damage out of it at max rank. So remember, we talked about Fizz. We talked about Fizz earlier. So Fizz didn't just have the AP nerfs. She just got completely destroyed in the Electrocute nerfs. So 0.25 ability power, previously 0.3. Damage ratio, 0.5 bonus attack damage to 0.4 bonus attack damage. Cooldown, 50 to 25 seconds, 25 to 20 seconds. Absolutely asinine. This is the most ridiculous nonsense. You can't just nerf champions and so if your opinion was that Fizz's buffs were overshot in the previous patch via AP buffs, then why do you nerf the AP buffs in the same exact patch that you're going to take away from Fizz's damage inside of the Electrocute? Because Fizz's burst is one of the primary concerns, right? So now, anyways, celerity. Attack damage 9.6, bonus movement speed to 6% bonus movement speed, ability power 16%, bonus movement speed to 10% bonus movement speed. So celerity, I think, is actually quite a bad rune now. You have to have a lot of champions that are able to buff your MS in order for you not to just want to take Gathering Storm. So the celerity nerf is just, I think, like a complete what the hell are you paying attention to moment for me. Because I really have to wonder what data is showing them that celerity is somehow a problem. Because anyone with a brain is more often than not just going to realize that, hey, Gathering Storm's actually better. Or Absolute Focus. Absolute Focus is just better. So I don't know why they're thinking that they have to do this to celerity. It doesn't make sense. Celerity actually needs a buff, not a nerf, because celerity is actually outclassed by the other two options in the tree right now. And I don't care if you go on pro builds and pros are still taking celerity or something, because you can open up a calculator and you can actually just think about objectively, like, okay, these stats that celerity are giving me, how likely are they to play into a situation and actually cause an impact versus the damage that Absolute Focus would give me or the other option inside of the tree. Cheap shot. 15 to 80 to 4. 15 to 40 to 8 to 4. Sudden impact. Lethality and magic penetration decreased. Now remember what I said. Quinn got nerfed. Fizz got nerfed. All these champions are getting nerfed. So let me tell you Fizz's real nerfs this patch. Okay? Fizz loses 3 lethality penetration. Loses 2 magic penetration. loses a metric fuck ton off of the electrocute shot, and then to top it all off, gonna lose some more from the AP. And then other champions are losing this as well. We're talking about Zoe, we're talking about Wukong, we're talking about Trundle, we're talking about Taliyah, we're talking about Quinn, we're talking about Orianna, because Orianna uses Aerie. Now, maybe Aerie's just gonna end up getting outclassed by, like, Apto's Grasp of the Undying or whatever. Well, probably not, because the Aerie change does make it so that Orianna's shield, you know, I guess I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here. But Aatrox gets hit. Aatrox is losing lethality as well. This is affecting a lot of other champions. So Lucian got hit here. Lucian just got hit with sudden impact. Scorch, base damage decrease, cooldown decrease. This rune is ultra specific to very, very few lanes. Okay? The fact that you just took the 10, just get it out. Just completely get it out. No one cares about it anymore. Now, the cooldown going from 20 to 10 seconds, let's think about that. So if you proc it both times, you were doing the old damage, right? The only time that I think that maybe it would matter is on the third proc. So, like, maybe the champions that can still make use of it by reliably being able to proc it, but those are already going to be winning lanes, and all that it's going to do is enable them to win more. So this is the weirdest thing in the entire world. So many champions this patch are being indirectly hit by these ridiculous changes. Summoner spells, heal, cooldown, decrease, 270 to 240. This is probably actually the best change they've had the entire patch. So whatever. Summoner level. You can now show off your summoner level and borders on banners in-game lobbies. That's great. End of game lobby. Bug fixes, upcoming skins and champions. You know how we do. So we're going to look at some of these champions. Mecha, Aurelian Soul. No thanks. How do can I click X? No? Okay. Mafia Braum. So this is actually probably the best skin. I actually don't know what the other skins are yet, so hold on. Cosmic, oh, no. This I think is the best skin. That is so cute. Is that Pix? That is so cute. That is such a cute Pix. Okay. Cosmic Defender, Jinzhao. Oh, that actually looks really cool. That looks like a paladin. This is actually making me want to play World of Warcraft, which I don't think that Riot should be going for that right now, especially because Battle for Azeroth just dropped, so I don't think that people want to be seeing the splash art and then be starting to think about paladins. Because this looks like a paladin. That's really cool. Cosmic Queen Ashe. Alright, well, I mean, that kind of looks like Sylvanas. So I'm thinking a lot about World of Warcraft right now. I don't know what that sign means. Is that supposed to be her bow or something? Who is that, and why is she so big here? What? Who are these people? Is that Kassadin? Who's that? Is that Kassadin? Why is she so big? Who's gonna fill that? Probably getting it on with Malphite. Alright, and then we have the Chromas now. I just can't do this. It just looks like Porygon's dad. I just really can't do this. It's like Porygon's dad came to League of Legends. Mafia Braum. Okay. These are all actually really good. That is, what is his name? Nick Wooster. That is 100% Nick Wooster. If you don't know who Nick Wooster is, just Google him right now. You'll thank me later. Cosmic Enchantress Lulu. These all look really good. I love the base skin, though. I think the base skin is absolutely the best one. It just looks like, mini Kassadin daughter. Okay, this actually looks really, really cool. I really, really, really like this. I think this skin is really, really nice. Cosmic Queen, Ashe. Okay, I mean, I'm getting a Sylvanas vibe, so, you know, this skin gets an S from me. So, overall, I like all of these skins, with the exception of the Mecha Aurelian Soul. And that is it for the patch 8.6 notes. I would call it a rundown, but it's just so bad. This is easily the worst patch that they have released in all of Season 8, and this 8.16, I wish it was 8.6, because then we would have more time until Worlds, so that we don't have to look at this abomination, but overall, that's it. I am so looking forward to 8.17 and 8.18, and I hope to God there's a lot more buffs in store for those two patches so that maybe the meta can be shaken up. But then again, I think that goes against what they're trying to do because they don't often like to shake up the meta before Worlds. But still, there is quite a lot of time, so maybe we can actually remain hopeful. So thanks for watching, guys.